Okay, the next thing is the questions app has been released to public, and we
Yeah,
were
but let me cut you off right there, Dan. It's
okay.
been renamed.
What time is it?
it is now known as the Live Q&A app.
Well, that's what it is. That's good. We're for
Yeah, I
that.
think it's a good name for it.
Okay. Yeah, I think that tells you what it is. And Google's not the best at naming things. I remember that West Wing episode where the Democrats were upset. They said the Republicans are just better at naming things, like the death tax. It just inflames people.
Well, you got to
So
remember,
this is a good
most of
thing.
the Googlers come from Microsoft, and they're equally bad at naming things. So,
Like Bing, that automatically tells you it's a search engine.
right, or Office, which is a nice generic name for nothing.
That's a better name than Bing. And slightly more popular. But anyway,
Yeah.
we
So,
digress.
anyway,
So, okay.
we don't want to get too far off topic.
The questions that we used to use,
Live
and we may
Q&A.
use again. I want to go on a brief tangent here because I got a comment. I haven't responded to him yet, but we switched to YouTube Live. The questions app's great. The feature set on Hangouts on Air is fantastic. It's a TV studio for free that streams to the world. But there are certain things you can't do. For example, what we're doing right now, I'm pre-recording segments because you can't be here tonight. So I'm pre-recording this with you, and I'm going to be able to play them live in the YouTube live stream, and then go to the bewildered panel that won't remember what you said. And I can't do that in an HoA. So also the quality of this is better. There is a sync issue. Sometimes our mouths are moving and the audio's, but I'm getting a new video card, or I'm trying to work on that. But there are certain things, so that's the reason I made the decision to not use it for a while and test the YouTube Live. But the Europeans can't receive this. I didn't realize this. Some European countries, I don't know how many, I don't know if all or some, can't get YouTube Live. So they can't watch the show live anymore. And I had a complaint. It's the first person who's brought that to my attention. I feel bad. So I may look at an audio stream or try to figure out, I'm mulling it over for our European friends.
Well, everything's got various trade-offs, and I think that actually describes really well the Live Q&A app itself.
Let's talk about it and how you compare it to Gerwin's comment tracker.
Comment tracker and how comment tracker integrates with Hangout Toolbox. The Live Q&A app, it's clever in a lot of ways. It introduces a couple of basic features. The biggest one, of course, is that there's now a way for your viewing audience to submit questions, and not just submit questions, but to vote on questions. And the better questions, both via votes and some other metrics that Google are using, will rise to the top. And a moderator, the host, will be able to pick those, get rid of some other ones that might be clogging things up, and answer questions. And one of the neat things is that one of the things we do with Comment Tracker is we put it up on the screen. And we like that so that you can see exactly what we're talking about. But it also gives you a visual reference for when you're looking for things later. Live Q&A takes a different approach to that. Instead of putting it up on the screen, you can always follow along if you're watching it later using the Live Q&A viewer. You'll always be able to go to the question that you're interested in and immediately see it. So while we use things like the playlist, the topic list with live links, and we use the pop-up pictures, Live Q&A viewer has this additional feature to it. And I think that's a pretty neat and powerful feature. But there are caveats. There's a lot of caveats. I think the biggest one is that you need to be using the Live Q&A player. And, what happens to the YouTube crowd? YouTube has been cultivating many, many viewers. And it now seems like this is, something different. If YouTube integrated questions into its commenting system, and let's be honest, the YouTube commenting system sucks. So if that questions app gets brought over into YouTube, that might be interesting, but it's not there yet. Live Q&A is another example of a long way to go before we actually see the good, solid product that it deserves to be. And I think to their credit, she has stated that there's more work being done on this. This is the first release, and we can expect to see more along this line coming out in the future.
What are some of the improvements that you'd like to see in the correcting myself, the Q&A app? I would like to put the questions on. I'd like the ability to click. I'd like all of the cool stuff about Gerwin's app built into it. The ability to get questions from multiple sources. The ability to click on the question and have it appear on the screen. Just basic things. And Google Plus has improved dramatically from the first days, but there's certain things, and I know
you know what. Here's
they
the
want
thing.
to get this out, and they're continuing to, listen to feedback and make improvements. But at some point, you get like, okay, we got to go to war now. We're going to release this thing, and you, like Rumsfeld famously said, you go to war with the army you have, not the army you want, and it's release day, and this is tested, works, and we're going to release it.
Here's a case where what are they going to war against?
I'm using war as a bad analogy.
No.
It's the great Rumsfeld quote.
It's your typical analogy, but but this is a case where really, what were they going to war against? What there were needs that were needed to be filled, and Comment Tracker was trying to fill some of those needs, but it was doing so incompletely. Live Q&A is trying to fill some of those needs, and it's doing it even more incompletely. We still have problems that people are going to, it doesn't really have the full integration that it deserves. It's not easy to post questions ahead of time and get them showing up in here. The live Q&A will automatically show up half an hour ahead of time if you're posting it from an event. But that means that I could have this event that I've been billing now for days or weeks, and everything that's been showing up in all of its comments won't show up here. So it's integration like that it still needs to do. And I think that's really it. Integration with all of the other tools is still sorely lacking. This is really almost a standalone tool that has minimal integration into the other products. I think the other big thing that I would love to see with this, and we saw this as an issue when we interviewed Vic Gandotra last, we tested an earlier version of this app in front of Vic, which was kind of hairy, I got to tell you.
Yeah, it was the first time. I don't know who was more worried, the Mountain View or us, especially me, that something would go wrong. And I wasn't sure I wanted to use it at first, but they reached out and they were eager for us to, because it was the first high profile.
Yeah,
and it was the first time he had seen it, and he loved it. And I talked to another Googler who ran into him at their office or in the hallway or whatever, and he brought it up. He said, "Yeah, I did this thing. The questions apps, it was really cool. People were asking live questions, and he could see them, I guess, and so he really liked it. He dug it. It was cool.
It is cool, but it's also things like that. Nate and I were asking questions, we're relaying questions, and you were furiously trying to manage it.
I had to basically withdraw as the host. I was
right.
Because you can't have a separate producer.
Right, and that's a thing that we see with a lot of tools still, is that they're assuming that the host is also going to be the producer, and we're finding that's not really true. So until they give that sort of capability, that's another thing, not just for live Q&A, but for a lot of the tools that we're seeing in HOAs, not quite there yet.
If folks start using this, and they want, do we know, for folks who begin to use this and have suggestions and want to submit feedback specific to the Q&A app, or what's it called?
Live Q&A.
The name du jour. Do we know the best way for them to reach out and offer either criticisms or bug reports or feature suggestions? Well, how should they do that?
The best way, of course, is to make a post and to make sure that you mention Google Plus Help. That's always a good way to do it. Also, using the send feedback feature, an excellent way to get feedback sent in. And for this or for anything about Google Plus, talking about it in the Google Plus Discuss community, which I understand may or may not be renamed to Google Plus Help at some point. Talking about it in that community, there are a whole host of top contributors who will help you out with problems. They've all been working with this sort of stuff. They've been previewing the live Q&A app, so they have some insights into it. And if you've got real feedback or real help, they can send it down the correct channels.
Or you could call the 800 number that Google has for tech support. An operator who speaks perfect English is standing by.
That would be 1-800 I think not.
Awesome. So this is cool. All right.